after a warning for the Victorian construction industry.
Employers, unions are on notice. We've had significant transmission on building sites.
Mandatory vaccination flagged.
We're working through a range of industries and sectors where vaccination of staff may be a requirement.
State CFMEU boss John Setka neatly laid out the argument both for.
We've got an obligation to keep people working. I mean, it is not helpful for a couple of 100,000 construction workers to be sitting at home. It's not going to help the economy.
And against.
I don't support anything being compulsory. I believe in freedom of choice, but at the same time, I believe there is people that have got legitimate concerns, and you've got to respect that.
Some major employers are pushing ahead. Crown Resort's the latest to flag mandating vaccines for its 20,000-strong workforce, potentially requiring vaccine certificates from customers as well.
I think Crown appears to be doing it the process the right way. They've polled and checked with their workforce. 63% of them would like it.
But for smaller employers, reopening is set to be a minefield.
We've been waiting 20 months to get back on our feet, to be put in a position at the moment where we have to decide on vaccination and non-vaccination and to discriminate on passports and non-passports. It's just, mate, it's a dog's breakfast. It's really challenging times for the industry.
It really is up to the New South Wales government to provide some clarity around what the public health orders are going to say so that businesses don't have to wear the brunt.
And there's no sign any such clarity will be forthcoming.
We do not have a mandatory vaccination policy in this country. That is not changing. Ultimately, they're choices for the businesses themselves.
As for whether a mandate is workable, the jury is still out. Up to 10% of the aged care sector is still to receive a mandatory first jab ahead of the Friday deadline.
There is already a workforce crisis in aged care, attraction and retention, and now we're putting it on those people that you've got 3 days or you don't have a job.
So, as we approach perhaps the most dangerous phase of the pandemic, is it fair to have employers navigate the minefield without a map?
This is always going to have been one of the most difficult industrial and business issues that we've confronted.
Wow. So before you arrived at the meeting this afternoon, Carrie, we were talking about who's mandatory vaccine, right? And what happened, Hamish? What happened in the meeting?
You weren't calling me a gentleman at that point in the afternoon.
Well, we had a really interesting conversation because nearly everyone was mandatory vaccine, but I'm not mandatory vaccine for work because I'm not anti-vax, but I'm very uncomfortable prescribing mandatorily to people what they have to put in their bodies in order to work or participate in. I'm just not. And maybe it was because, as I said to Hamish, I was raised a Jehovah's Witness and they have the concept of disfellowshipping, which I just find so repugnant. And I hate the thought that people will be disfellowshipped from their lives because they have hesitation about or doubts about the vaccination.
And what were you saying, Haim?
Well, it's not just about that individual's doubts or hesitation. The reality is that that hesitation can impact other people and their health. So as an employer, you're responsible not just to Kate, who might be cautious, you're responsible to all your employees, right? And if you let Kate continue to come into work, you can transmit it to us, and then we can transmit it to our families. You know, if you want to go and visit,
that's when your vaccine has to do its work.
But the vaccine doesn't. But the vaccine doesn't prevent you from contracting the virus or transmitting it. It just reduces the likelihood that you'll end up in hospital or that you'll die. The reality is, if someone comes to our workplace, gives it to me, I can then take it to, a residential aged care facility perhaps where my father might be, and then spread it through there. I don't want to do that. And I think we all have the right to be able to go to work and be able to work in a safe environment. That's a fundamental principle.
And I agree.
Bringing COVID into the workplace is not safe.
I know, and you would like to think that everyone that you work with would make that decision, but if they haven't made that decision, I can't in good conscience go along with what they can't work.
Well, they can work, but maybe they have to work from home.
If you have the right to go into your workplace and feel protected, does someone else not also have the right to decide what they put into their body? That's just always. I just
all
get
the people though, that
stymied
aren't
on
working
it.
currently now because they can't work until we come out of lockdown, until our vaccination rates
exactly,
get up. So
exactly.
they're not working at the moment.
And vaccination rates are up.
And we should point out, you are vaccinated?
And I'm halfway.
Halfway.
But, yeah, and my son got vaccinated today. It's not a question about that. It's more an ideological question of I'm just so ish about it.
With so much content online, it's sometimes hard to keep up with it all. And let's face it, who has the time? The Project YouTube has you covered with the stories that matter. Hit subscribe for a daily list of the news that you need to know.